Country braces for an intriguing week as the Supreme Court is all geared up to deliver its verdict after a marathon hearing lasting for just over a month in the House dissolution case. The Constitutional Bench has asked for hearing notes by early Monday this week, suggesting that the much-awaited verdict could be announced any day after Monday. Good morning, I'm Amar Singh Pradhan and these are the top stories of the hour. Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli calls on the Supreme Court not to stay the government decision of dissolving the House of Representatives, says reinstatement will weaken democracy. The syndicate system thrives in every sector ranging from transport, daily essentials to health services, public aid receiving and due to a tithless government. More deaths reported from Myanmar as protest against the coup intensify. Police used live ammunition to disperse demonstrators, at least 20 injured. And Everton dish out a stunning win over Liverpool at Anfield for the first time since 1999 in the English Premier League. Chelsea and Southampton settled for a draw. Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli has called on the Supreme Court not to stay the government decision of dissolving the House of Representatives. Addressing a mass gathering hosted by his faction, Prime Minister Oli emphasized that the apex court must rule in favor of the House dissolution. Premier Oli expressed his confidence that the Supreme Court would consider the public support gained by his faction before announcing its verdict on the case. Prime Minister Oli warned that if the government decision was not upheld by the Supreme Court, his faction would hit the street. Premier Oli further claimed that if the dissolved House was restored, it would give way to more political bickerings and further weaken the democracy. Premier Oli also claimed that his faction would back the symbol of sun as the party's electoral symbol. Prime Minister Oli also flayed the Vice President and Speaker of the dissolved House. He also challenged the Vice President to participate in the elections. The syndicate has thrived not only in daily essentials and transport, but also in health services in the face of a tithless government. As the regulatory body has remained silent, the private sector has been able to set their own prices, putting the customers at the receiving end. More in this report.
The Ministry of Health and Population is entitled to set the consultation fee for the treatment of the patients. However, doctors and the Association of Hospitals increased the consultation fee on their own last Wednesday. They fixed the consultation fee of the doctors at 825 rupees as per their experiences, but without a prior approval of the ministry. Likewise, the Air Service Operators Association announced the increase in domestic airfares on Friday. The Syndicate of Private Sector Air Service Providers has increased fares from 10 to 90 rupees depending on the travel distance, citing that the Oil Corporation has increased the price of fuel by 2 rupees per litre. Meanwhile, not a single government body wants to comment on the fare hike. In the meantime, the syndicate also thrives in taxi services. The taxis are reluctant to provide their services to the customers at the fare fixed by the government. Likewise, the foreign employment sector too has fallen prey to syndicate business. The customers are bearing the brunt of thriving syndicate system in daily essential items like sugar, vegetables and meat. It may be recalled that the government had decided to scrap the syndicate and public transportation some 3 years ago. However, due to pressure from the businesses, the government was not able to implement the system. Likewise, the Prime Minister's office itself had played the spoil sports to the Labour Ministry's decision of doing away with the syndicate in the health checkup and visa process. Despite such thriving anomalies, the monitoring body has remained a silent spectator as public at large continues to remain at the receiving end of the syndicate debacle.
The absence of a proper monitoring mechanism leaves most projects and their impacts during and after the project period unchecked. The second international airport to be made in Bara will occupy 8,046 hectares of land and will see felling of 2.4 million trees. Sadly, the environmental impact of such a large-scale project is yet to be studied thoroughly. More in this report.
The Trivandrum International Airport saw 7.3 million passengers in 2019. The need for a second international airport had long been felt in the country to cater to the increasing number of passengers each year, and the Nijgarh International Airport has hence been 25 years in planning. The second international airport, to be made in Kolhabi Bara, will occupy 8,046 hectares of land and will see felling of 2.4 million trees. The heavily forested land is home to 23 species of mammals, 31 avian species, and 10 species of reptiles. This includes several endangered species as well. One of the mitigation measures identified for the project is compensatory planting in 36,294 hectares of land. However, given the lack of compliance on part of proponents in the past, doubts are high. An environmental audit of the hydroelectricity project in Modikola identified that the proponent had failed to release a minimum 10% flow of water in dry season as suggested by its EIA report. As a result, the number of fishes went down and the livelihoods of the locals that depended on the river fishes were affected. The proponent did comply with constructing a fish ladder for migration of fish. However, the environmental audit later confirmed that the ladders were constructed in inappropriate location and were ineffective.
एक त डिलेड कम्प्लायन्स एउटा नन कम्प्लायन्स दुई किसिमको हुन्छ भनौँ हैन त्यो दुईटैमा चाहिँ एफर्ट गर्ने चाहिँ एउटा स्ट्रिक्ट इम्प्लिमेन्टेसन मेकानिजम चाहिँ यो चाहिँ छैन के हामीका.
Forests and oceans are the two biggest natural carbon sinks. The long-term impact of felling 2.4 million trees for the second international airport has sparked an outcry among those who are concerned of the environment. Meanwhile, locals in the project region, most of whom are unaware of the environmental costs, are waiting for the project to begin.
जनताले पाउने आधारभूत आवश्यकता सरकारले दिएर त्यहाँ निजगढ विमानस्थल बनाउनु एकदम गौरवको कुरा हो. त्यो हामी त्यसमा छेकबाड पनि गर्दैनौँ.
The absence of a proper monitoring mechanism has left most projects and their impacts during and after the project period unchecked. There is a call on the proponents to comply with mitigation measures and for the authorities to establish a mechanism to monitor the implementation. With Bikas Joshi and Hemant Katwal on camera, Sarah Sapsanama for Kantipur News, Kathmandu.
And time now for our segment Public Pulse, where it texts us with their opinion.
Public Pulse.
What's your take on thriving syndicated sectors ranging from health to aviation? Your options are option A, lack of scientific system, option B, dominance of interest groups, and option C, nexus with monitors. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. And those were our latest headlines. Our next English bulletin will be at 11 this morning. Have a good day.